Hey guys, what's up? My name is Kret, and today I want to talk to you about one of the changes that's currently on the PTS, and I would assume gonna go live with the new map ready for Season 2. And this is a change to the lane mechanics. It's listed in the patch notes, which I have here in this section. And so, just to go over it, basically, players who move out of assist reward range of a minion or camp kill no longer receive assist rewards, even if they dealt damage to the minion or camp before it died. This does not affect assists on god kills. Assist reward range is reduced from 80 to 60, and towers no longer remove all gold from a minion for dealing damage to it, but now reduce the reward by 50%. It's bugged on the PTS and it's not properly reducing gold. So, this is actually a really good change, in my opinion, and I want to talk about why. In my last video, we went over gold gain and farming. Now, when you're solo and you kill a creep wave, you get 65 experience and 17 gold for each big creep, or each melee creep, and 45 experience and 12 gold for each range creep. That value increases to 25 and 18 gold, respectively, if you last hit, so last hitting is definitely beneficial. Waves spawn twice a minute, so it's a total of 660 experience and 174 to 258 gold per minute, assuming you last hit. Each player receives 3 gold per second, which is 180 gold, so your total average gold per minute from just farming your lane is 354 to 438. So that's what you get if you're trading evenly. The more last hits you get, the closer you get to that 438 number. And then this is not taking into account other methods of getting gold, like first blood, objectives, farming, etc. This is just lane minions, because that's really what we're focusing in on here. So, what happens when you're losing your lane in the current patch? Well, you get pushed under tower. And what that means is for every minion hit, you lose the full gold value of that minion. That's a pretty big difference, right? Because that could take you from 438 GPM if you're last hitting everything down to 180, which would be very, very low. It means you're getting half or less than half the gold that you'd usually get. And I'm going to actually jump into a just practice game, and we can explore this a little bit more in depth. I'll probably dot it up a little bit too. So, what happens here? What happens when you get pushed under tower? How does that happen? It essentially comes down to a bad lane matchup more often than not, right? Like, if you're playing, when she first released, like Scylla into Poseidon was a really tough matchup for her on release. Because she just got pushed into tower the whole time, so she was losing gold like crazy, so whatever. So we're gonna head to lane. And I'm going to let some creeps get into my tower, and I hope Robot will cooperate. And we're just going to pretend that I'm losing this lane to Robot, but in actuality, I could totally beat him up. So when gold's pushing, or when creeps are pushing a tower into your tower, this means a few different things, right? So the first thing is there's damage coming into your tower. That's obviously really good for your opposing team. They want to take these towers down. They're worth a decent amount of gold for the team, and they open up the map a little bit so that there's more options to attack your opposition when their towers are down. It means it's also safer or less safe to push up and farm. The second thing is minions go into the tower, so you'd be losing experience well, not experience, but you'd be losing gold. And then the last thing is that pushing creeps in the tower, you don't actually have to stick around and do that. You don't have to watch them, right? If creeps are in the tower, you can go do stuff. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Robot here is pushing these creeps. My creeps haven't killed any because they suck. And so now some of these minions are going to get pushed in a tower, right? And so this guy, I'm going to kill this one here. Killed him. I get 25 gold, 65 experience because I last hit. These guys, I don't get any gold. I still get the regular amount of experience, right? So if I kill this one, oh, scumbag, he stole it from me. But I got experience for another one. So thanks to my minions. All right, that's what happens when creeps are pushing a tower. Now I want to talk about zoning. When someone's zoning you, you can tag the creep and back off. And my slow is actually going to tag that. It didn't die though, so that's a bad example. And I might have some trouble because it is Robot. So I can probably get him to go back to base here. And go back to base. Ra, go back to base. Base. Go to your base. Go to your base. Good boy. Go to your base. Alright. So if I drop that pillar, that's going to tag the creeps. They're getting a slow, and because of that, in the current map, it's going to tag me for credit when one of them dies. If they die. 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 Oh, it's not going to happen. Okay, just trust me. It is... Oh, it'll happen here. Alright, I'm really far away. I get credit. I didn't touch it, right? I didn't kill it. I'm out of range. The assist range is 80. The other thing to mention is next pass, which is going to be 60, which is about this far. This is going to be assist range on the new map. Alright, cool. So that's the current situation. If the tower touches the creep, I lose all of the gold, still get experience. And if I'm zoned, well, if it works, right? If I'm not able to tag it at all with my pillar, with my impale, I lose all of that gold and experience. But if I am able to tag it, I still get full golden experience value. Now the thing about freezing a lane, right? So let's say I'm freezing a lane from this robot. He can't come in. I am committing to standing here, right? I have to be in this spot. The opposing team knows where I am because I'm on the map, visible to minions, and the moment I leave, I stop zoning and I stop having an advantage. And that's a really big deal because if I'm pushing creeps into the tower, and I'm gonna ult this wave so they do go into the tower, right? So I'm pushing creeps into his tower here. Raw. Get out of here. Alright. Cool. Full creep waves in his tower. He now has to deal with that, and that gives me time to walk into the jungle and go do stuff. And you see this a lot in the solo lane, right? Like Bakasura, when he has lane control, or Cyrus too, Hercules, they can get the advantage, walk into the jungle, and steal your blue buff because they don't have to be visible in lane. But in order to zone, you are visible in lane. So on the current map, zoning isn't an option that's really good. Now, it's still better denial than pushing creeps in the tower, right? You're still losing the same amount of gold, hypothetically, though. When creeps are in your tower, you know, you might be able to tag one of the archers or so. But you don't get experience, right? If you're fully zoned, you're not going to get experience, which is a big difference because experience is super important and can create a large deficit between the two players. So how is this going to change on the new map, right? Well, pushing creeps in the tower is still going to have two really good benefits. The first benefit being you get creeps in the tower, you apply pressure to that tower, it's going to take some damage like mine is now, and that's just sort of natural. Even with Robot attacking it, he's going to do some pressure to the tower. The second advantage is it's pressure that doesn't necessitate Rob being here, right? Like, he's sniping stuff, and he can sit at the edge of this tower and harass me, but he doesn't have to be. He could go into the jungle and do something else if he really wanted to. Whereas zoning, that's not really the case, right? Like, Ra has to be in the area, otherwise zoning doesn't really work. You have to sit here with the creep wave, and you have to say, hey, if you come in, I'm going to kill you. So, that's on the current map, is that zoning not really used because of the cost of being there. On the new map, pushing creeps to the tower will still apply tower pressure, and it will still... it'll still allow you to leave, right? You can leave and still have creeps pushing the tower. You just have to show up, push the creep wave faster than your opponent, and then do your thing. Yeah, so you show up, you push the creep wave in the tower, and then you go into the jungle, right? Or you can sit there, you can pressure the tower, you can do whatever, you have options. When you're zoning, you have to sit there, and you just deny experience. So here's the thing. Zoning becomes more powerful on the new map, right? It's much harder to tag creeps. If you move out of the range, you no longer get credit. If you last hit, you still get credit, so there's some counterplay there, but that's difficult, right? Like, if be back here, you're like, oh, I'm out of range. Wait, got one. Okay, cool. And that, like, that's rough, right? So zoning's a lot stronger. But is zoning going to be overpowered? Well, that's hard to say. But the sacrifice of having to sit in lane and, like, actively zone is actually a pretty hefty price to pay, right? Like, if I'm sitting in lane zoning off the robot, well, if I'm sitting in lane in Conquest zoning, then that means that the enemy jungler knows where I am. They can gank me. Or the enemy team says, hey, that guy's zoning our solo laner. That sucks. And we can't really gank him well. So let's take advantage of the fact that he has to be there, and we know that he's there, and do stuff somewhere else on the map. So zoning costs map pressure, whereas pushing creeps in the tower and then roaming, because you can do that, creates map pressure. So it's just sort of a different cost, it's a different paradigm. It's much more powerful denial, but it's not free. Whereas in the current system, if you just push creeps into your opponent's tower, well, if they don't have a response for that, right? Like if I'm losing lane, I'm behind 2 levels, and I can't contest the creep wave, I'm just getting pushed, my tower's slowly dying, the enemy can rotate in the jungle, they can pressure my tower, they don't have to be there at all, so they can push and then go be safe, and I'm losing that pressure regardless. And that's really powerful. It's actually so powerful that, for the most part, in high-level competitive play, you can't afford to lose lane to that extent. You can't afford to put yourself in a lane matchup where you're going to be forced under a tower because your opponents just gain so much, and you have to counteract that somehow. So, you know, when Bakasura is picked in the solo lane, that means there's often a lot of jungle pressure devoted to keeping him under control, so he can't push in the tower and then roam in the jungle and be super annoying. What's going to happen in the new map? Well, zoning's still a powerful option. You're still decreasing your opponent's gold gain, and actually pushing creeps into the tower is also still a powerful option, right? So instead of getting 174 gold per minute from the wave, they get half that. They'd get, what is that? It's like 77 gold, I think. They'd get 77 gold per minute, so that puts them at 257. Not good, but it's an improvement. So I think pushing creeps in the tower will still be strong. I think zoning will be stronger and will actually be used in competitive play, and something to be afraid of, something that teams will have to play around. And I think overall, it's going to make the competitive scene a little bit more interesting at the high level, because you will be able to afford to have your opponents push you under tower in competitive play. Right now, it's just too strong. It denies too much. It applies too much pressure. There's too much zoning, or there's too much like ability to leave and go somewhere else. And I think the gold increase could be just enough to relieve that pressure and allow some picks that are weaker in the lane and stronger late, or just allow situations where you say, you know what, my team's up against Cogred, Divios is in the solo lane, and I don't have an answer for him, and instead of playing chalk just to stalemate that, you can maybe just be like, well, you know what, I'm going to play Chronos, and I'll lose for the first 10 levels, but after that I'll get my farm, I'll get going, and I'll not catch up, but I'll get to where I need to be. So I think it'll potentially open up a lot of options in both terms of offense and defense, and I think it's a good change. So like, comment, and subscribe if you like my video. This is definitely a topic of discussion, so I want to hear what you're saying. There's a Reddit thread you can check out just to discuss this, or drop a comment down below, or tweet at me, twitter.com/kretata. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace.